Afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon and good afternoon. How y'all doing? Hope y'all are having a good afternoon. Happy Monday. All right. So quite a bit has happened today and in the last couple of days over the weekend. Good stuff. Very, very, very good stuff that we're going to talk about today. So, three big things that I want to talk about today. Tekken Netflix getting announced. PlayStation Sony acquiring Haven Studios. And a little quick review of Stranger of Paradise before we jump back into it later on. But first things first, like I said, how y'all doing? Good afternoon. Hope you're having a good Monday or Tuesday if you're on the other side of the world. Good afternoon here in the States. Good evening in UK and Europe. Good morning over in Asia. How y'all doing in Australia? Hope y'all are having a good day. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Before we get going, just a couple of things. Just a reminder that this is not sponsored, but my Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin live streams have been sponsored by Square Enix. So, again, shout out to Square Enix for giving me a copy of Stranger of Paradise to share, review, and all that good stuff Thank you for that, Square Enix. And for all of you, if you'd really like to help me out, go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and smash the like button, gun break the like button, whatever main ability of your job or class is, whatever to that like button. Again, welcome back, especially to my subscribers. Good to see y'all again. If you're new here and you're not a subscriber and you'd like to see more daily content and live streams, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell, and you'll be known. It'll be made known to you when I do go live or when I do post new content. And if you'd like exclusive emotes, you can hit that join button and get all that good stuff. So now, let us jump in to the main topic of today. But first things first, I gotta put the jacket on, because you just know that's just how we do. Jacket's gotta go on here. Jacket's gotta go on here. It might also help if I turn the camera on. How y'all doing? What's going on, guys and girls? What's going on? Let me flip it over to this was awkward, but hush, IGN. Nobody cares. All right. How the streams go? Streams have been going well. Streams have been going very well. Having a good time. Having a good time. So, there we go. Hold on, I gotta cuff him up here. Good to see you. Hey, what's up, Core? How you doing, homie? What's going on, man? Corporate, how you doing, homie? Good to see you, dude. Good to see you, dude. Did want to let y'all know, coming up here very soon, of course, the next patch for 14 is going to be dropping. Coming up in April. Also, of course, I do want to throw in some triangle strategy here and there because it is that good. We're going to finish up Stranger of Paradise this week. We've made a lot of good headway on it. I will mix in some KOF 15 here and there because I have... it's getting good. And also, and this might sound a little bit controversial. I know I'm over here. You can't really see me. This might sound a little bit controversial. But I am going to be turning, for the live stream, I am going to be turning World of Warcraft back on. Someone was very kind and gifted me a subscription. I'm not going to say who they are. I just am going to say thank you for that. That was very kind of you. Because I have decided, and a few of my friends even decided, we want to give Wrath Classic a shot when it drops. And I do suspect it will be dropping sometime later this year. And I would like to get a character leveled on Burning Crusade Classic. So that's just me. Why? Because I want to. That's why. Because I want to, and I have a general rule that I always follow and a philosophy I always follow. I never judge people for the games they play, and neither should you, or anybody else, for that matter. That's just how it should live, and that's good enough reason because I want to, and that's a good enough reason. It's the only reason. You know why? Just because, it is what it is. So, there's that, and just because I still find some degree of joy in it. And I wanted to state for the record, before anybody questions that, I have been more than open with my critique with retail World of Warcraft and Activision Blizzard. And I know someone will say, oh, well, Activision Blizzard's a terrible company. You know what? They're all terrible companies. Every company has done something terrible. Hold on one second. My dog is doing something. Rocky, what are you doing? Never mind. I falsely accused my dog. Sorry. I falsely accused my dog. Sorry about that. So, yeah. So, it is what it is, But that's not the topic of what we're here to talk about. Because I want to. Exactly. The reason is because I want to. All right. So, again, welcome back to the Crimson KB podcast. I hope y'all are having a good afternoon. So, let's get into our first little topic of discussion here. And that's this little number right here. Tekken Bloodline animated series announced for Netflix 2022. That is incredible that Out of all the things, it's Tekken that are getting an animated series here. And personally, I absolutely love it. So, IGN posted here, Netflix has announced Tekken Bloodline, an animated series based on the beloved fighting series that is set to be released in 2022. Netflix shared the news on Twitter by releasing both a teaser trailer and a poster that is focused on Jin Kazama. The official YouTube channel also reveals the show's synopsis. The tweet says, in the first animated series they did do, I believe they did do another animated shot years ago. Jin Kazama goes on a heroic mission leading to the ultimate battle, the King of the Iron Fist tournament, and it will be dropping sometime later this year. Power is everything. Jin Kazama learned the family self-defense arts, Kazama-style traditional martial arts from his mother at an early age. The official synopsis reads, even so, he was powerless when a monstrous evil suddenly appeared, and the evil that appeared was Ogre, destroying everything dear to him, changing his life forever. Angry at himself for being unable to stop it, Jin vowed revenge and sought absolute power to exact it. His quest will lead to the ultimate battle on a global stage, the King of Iron Fist tournament. The trailer also teases some of the Tekken characters that will be part of the show, including who appear to be, these are, Heihachi Mishima, Kazuya Mishima, Leroy Smith, King, Jun Kazama, his mother, Paul Phoenix, and Ogre. This is not the first time Tekken has explored other entertainment mediums, as an anime Tekken film was released in 1998. A live-action film followed in 2009, and it was awful. And an animated film, Tekken Blood Vengeance, arrived in 2011. That was pretty decent right there. As for the Tekken games, the last mainline entry was Tekken 7 in 2015. It began in arcades and came to consoles in 2017. And no official announcements have been made for a Tekken 8 or whatever it may end up being called. The Tekken animated series is just one of many in the works projects based on video games and joins an ever-growing list that includes Sonic the Hedgehog 2, BioShock, Halo, The Last of Us, and many more. So, again, this is a trend that seems to be popping up more and more here. That was very, very prominent in the 90s. Was them trying to take video games and put them in other mediums, especially movies and animated series and stuff like that. Now, this goes back all the way back to things like the Mario Brothers Super Show, the original Legend of Zelda cartoon. You know the one. Excuse me, princess. You know the one I'm talking about. It goes back a very long way, and they've tried to successfully incorporate video games into television series, movies, to various degrees of hit and miss. And sadly, it's mostly been a miss over the years. The Mario Brothers movie, while, a fun little junk popcorn movie, was not received well. The Doom movie starring The Rock was not received well. Tomb Raider has been hit and miss. The Final Fantasy movie that they tried, while a technological marvel, was not a good Final Fantasy movie. In fact, the only Final Fantasy movie that was received very positively was Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, because it was going off of the events of Final Fantasy VII and continuing that story. Now, whether you're a Seven fan or not, it can't be denied that it was received extremely well. But video game movies and video game television series, for the most part, have had a lot of unsuccess, or have not been very successful over the years. However, it has shown in the last, I want to say 5 or so years, that things have kind of taken a turn for the better. And a big example I can give is the Castlevania series. The Castlevania series that also popped up on Netflix. The Castlevania series was based off of the video games, and of course was based on the events of Castlevania 3, which was very early in the Castlevania timeline with Trevor and Alucard and Sypha. And so it was based off of those events. And it was received extremely well. The audience very much liked it. It was a coherent story. It had interesting characters. It had very beautiful animation. It had an understandable, relatable antagonist in Dracula. It had a very, cunning, backstabbing villainess in Carmilla. And so you had a lot of different, characters in the mix here with all different agendas and backstories and things of that nature. And it was received extremely well and was very, very successful and had a very good not to spoil too much here, but had a very good happy ending. I know it's strange for something like, say, Castlevania having a happy ending, but it did. It had a definitive punctuation mark at the end and was received really well and had a very good ending. And quite frankly, they didn't need to do more with it after that as far as those characters were concerned. Will they continue it? That remains to be seen. Of course, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, while initially received very big backlash strictly on the design of Sonic the Hedgehog himself, which has become very infamous and memed to hell and back. The studio saw the backlash and actually took it to heart and redesigned Sonic. And it was received extremely well. And it not just for the redesign itself being more faithful to the original look of Sonic himself, but just for the fact that a movie studio was willing to listen to the fans and to the audience. And because they did that, while it did set them back on time and very much the same case in money, it proved to be a box office smash and was received extremely well. You could even say Detective Pikachu was received extremely well and did extremely well in the box office as well. Sonic the Hedgehog, however, was a commercial success, was received very, very positively by from the nostalgia with adults, with children, and all around, it did a very, very good job. It did a very good job, and the fans went all happy, and the studio was happy, and it did so well that it warranted a sequel, which is bringing in Knuckles, and also Jim Carrey reprising his role as Dr. Robotnik, which I will personally say I think Jim Carrey is the perfect fit for a Dr. Robotnik character. I think he has, I think he is just in his element, and I think he's just enjoying the role so much. And it's a good story that they're telling. It's, maybe not the best story, but it is an engaging and fun one. And overall, it's good stuff. And so there's a lot of hype and anticipation behind that. Of course, the Halo series is coming very soon. BioShock is getting something. The Last of Us is getting something. Super Mario has a movie on the way. So this really seems to be a big turnaround in the video game industry when it comes to movies and television series, because I firmly do believe that there are people that are helming these projects and leading these projects that actually are fans of these franchises, that actually know the history and are appreciating and recognizing the history of these franchises and want to do them justice, because it's been proven and it has been a time-tested statement that when you do things that make your fans happy, that positivity and joy from it and the success from it can radiate off of pleasing those fans into bringing in new audience members. When you try to cater to everybody, that's when you can lose yourself. You have to appeal to your fans first, especially when it comes to video games and video game adaptations. You have to please your fans first. Many studios tend to forget this. Whether they be in movies, whether they be in television series, whether they be in streaming series, whether they be in the video game industry, period. Many studios and devs over the years, I feel, have forgotten this this philosophy, you could say. That a lot of them have forgotten this philosophy. And I'll even use Final Fantasy XIV as an example. The reason 14 has been so successful, not just because of the open communication with fans, and not just the fact that it was a success story after the failure that was 1.0, but the fact that they made it a Final Fantasy game first to make Final Fantasy fans happy first. And because they did that, and because it succeeded off of that notion, and because they made it fun to play and improved things over time, it brought in more and more people as an audience. And now they have more players than they ever did before. They have more players than ever. And so right there, it proves right there, if you please your fan base first, and you please your player base first, if you please your core audience first, success will come. Success will happen. And I am very confident that, especially after the success that Castlevania had on Netflix, I'm very confident that Tekken Bloodline is going to possibly have the same success. You know, if they're very smart with the story, and just from what I've seen with the animation itself, the animation is very beautifully done. It is very, very beautifully done, very much in the vein of Tekken and its appearance. If they do this and it proves to be a success, and Mortal Kombat has done the same, while the animated, the two animated films that they did, the story may have been, maybe a little convoluted. It's Mortal Kombat, and you have to kind of take the cheesiness with it. But even Mortal Kombat has proven that you can do animated movies and actually be very successful, because those two, while cheesy. Again, it's Mortal Kombat. You have to take it with a degree of cheese there. Even Mortal Kombat has had success in that avenue. And it shows right there that animation is the future of video game adaptations in so many regards. Like, you could take Sonic the Hedgehog and integrate him into live action, very similar in the vein of Roger Rabbit, as the first Sonic movie showed. You could take a series like Halo and absolutely make it live action. Would Halo also work as an animated series? Absolutely. Tekken has proven that live action is just not good enough, because Tekken is so over the top that it needs to be animation, because in animation versus live action, you can get away with a lot more. You can also break the boundaries of what is physically possible because it's animated. But it also brings up a baffling thing of another series that's going to be coming later on, and that's the Mega Man series. Now, you'd think something like Mega Man would absolutely be animated, right? But they announced that Mega Man was going to be live action, which left a lot of fans scratching their head. Of all the things that should have been an animated series, it should have been Mega Man. Because, come on, look at it, you know? Something like Mega Man absolutely begs to be animated. Now, something like Last of Us, could it work in animation? Yes, but we understand that it is possible. I do believe it is going live action. I could be correct about that. I could be incorrect about that. But, BioShock is getting a series. So, either way, the thing at the end of the day is it's so good seeing the video game industry and these IPs from video games treated with a lot more dignity and respect, and given the time and the effort to actually make good animation series, streaming series, television series, movies, and actually make a good product out of them while still paying respect to the original source material and making things that are pleasing to the core audience. Because, like I said, if you please your core audience, it will radiate off of that success, and you can possibly bring in a new audience as well alongside the core audience. That, to me, is the secret to success when you're bringing video games into adaptations in other mediums. I think my only regret, well, maybe not a regret, I think my only bit of salt out of all of this is that we didn't get this when we were kids. We got all the crap when we were kids, and it's just not fair, man. It's just not fair. We got all the crap, and now they get all the good stuff. But at the end of the day, Tekken Bloodline looks to be very good, and I hope it is a success. Let me catch my breath here. All right. By the way, just a reminder, please, you can post away in the chat, but I may or may not respond just because, I'm talking here. All right, next thing. All right, next little thing here. So, they said more of these kinds of things were coming, and lo and behold, it has happened. As of today, it was announced on the PlayStation.blog and, of course, on their Twitter account, but Sony has acquired Haven Studios as a new IP for PlayStation. Montreal-based studio's first new IP for PlayStation is a AAA multiplayer experience. Now, a lot of people may not, or some people may not know who the heck is Haven Studios, and I'll tell you all about that right here. As posted on the PlayStation.blog, Herman Hulst, head of PlayStation Studios, posted, "Today, I am delighted to announce that Haven Studios is officially joining PlayStation Studios. Jade Raymond brings a wealth of experience from her industry achievements and an infectious passion for creating games, and the leadership team at Haven is an equally impressive group of industry veterans who have collaborated on some of the biggest and most beloved games and franchises that many of us still enjoy today. We began working with Jade and her team in early 2021 when they were on the brink of announcing the formation of Haven Studios. From their first pitch, we were inspired by Haven's vision for creating a modern multiplayer experience that brings gamers together in positive and meaningful ways. We were confident in their creative and technical expertise to deliver on such an ambitious project, and were thrilled to invest in their journey developing a new original IP for PlayStation. We've had the privilege of working closely with Haven this past year and have been impressed by the studio's growth and progress. So now, practically on the anniversary of when we made our partnership official, it is especially exciting to formally welcome them into the PlayStation family. We can't wait to see what the future holds for Haven Studios. Welcome to PlayStation Studios, Haven." So, and then Jade Raymond, CEO and founder of Haven Studios, post, "1 year ago this month, we embarked on a journey to start Haven Studios with a small team and big ambitions. Our goal was to build a studio where we could make the kind of games we always wanted to create, and games we've longed to play. We've made amazing progress in a short time thanks to our talented, passionate team and their exceptional contributions. We established a culture at Haven grounded in kindness, adaptability, and courage that unlocks creativity. Our first new IP for PlayStation is on track to deliver a AAA multiplayer experience with a vision to build a systemic and evolving world focused on freedom, thrill, and playfulness that will keep players entertained and engaged for years. Today, the Haven team begins a new phase of our journey as part of the PlayStation Studios family. Working with Herman, Connie Booth, and this team at PlayStation over the past year has been a career highlight. SIE is a supportive partner that truly understands the creative process and what it takes to make a blockbuster AAA game. They have empowered and encouraged us to bring our bold vision to life and make dreams come true, and we could not be more thrilled with this opportunity. As a SIE first-party studio, we will have the opportunity to collaborate with some of the most renowned developmental teams, including studios like Guerrilla, Naughty Dog, Media Molecule, and Insomniac, the creators of games that have inspired us as players and developers for years. We're excited to learn from these world-class studios, as well as the exceptional central creative, technology, and marketing teams whose expertise will enable us to deliver even better games to players. To our Haven team, a huge thank you. It's been one of the most rewarding years of my career. And to the players out there, we can't wait to share more. We're just at the beginning of what is sure to be a wondrous adventure that will span generations. Jade Raymond, CEO and founder of Haven Studios. Now, again, some people might say, who is Jade? Who is Jade Raymond, and why is this important? Here is why this is important, because the details are actually very, very intriguing. Jade Raymond is actually a juggernaut when it comes to names in the video game industry. She is very much a prominent name, and she is very much a juggernaut in this industry. How is she a juggernaut? Let's put it this way. She is best known for helping to create the Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs franchises, and for building the Ubisoft, Toronto, and EA Motive studios. And then, of course, she began her own indie development team, Haven Studios, in March of 2021. Her accolades include being the producer of The Sims Online in 2002, being the producer for Assassin's Creed 1 in 2007, being the executive producer for Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Bloodlines, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Blacklist, and Watch Dogs. Big AAA games. The managing director of Assassin's Creed Unity, the managing director of Far Cry 4, the executive producer for The Mighty Quest for Epic Loot, and SVP Group General Manager for Star Wars Battlefront 2. So this lady has quite the she has quite the pedigree when it comes to, does she know what she's doing when it comes to the video game industry? And that is a massive, resounding yes. She very, very much knows what she is doing. She's very much knows what she is doing, and she has a mind for the business as well. Regardless of how you feel about certain companies and certain video games, one fact cannot be denied. These are big name titles. These are big name titles that she has been the head of when it comes to the video game industry here. I mean, Assassin's Creed 1, but especially Assassin's Creed 2. I mean, we can all remember how much that blew up in 2009. Having her name on a Splinter Cell game. You know, some people may not have liked Splinter Cell Blacklist, but Splinter Cell Blacklist was a good game. Watch Dogs went over extremely big when it dropped in 2014. Extremely big. Far Cry 4 went over extremely big. And while it is marred with some controversy, even Star Wars Battlefront 2 went over big, you know. Had some problems from the corporate side of things with pay to win and stuff like that and time gating things, but the game itself actually was really good as far as gameplay is concerned. And then, of course, like I said, she started her own, she did start her own indie company, Haven Studios. Now, what they've said right here, and the keywords to take a look at here, are they brought in Haven to create a modern multiplayer experience and a brand new IP for PlayStation. So that means coming up from these guys, there's going to be a big AAA first-party multiplayer game coming out of Haven Studios that is also a new IP. What will this be? I do not know. But the fact that they use those phrases, multiplayer and original IP, this means it's not going to be a remake of something or a reboot of something or even a remaster. This is a brand new, fresh out the oven title that is going to be coming out of Haven Studios and PlayStation, whatever it may be that they announce. Either way, Jade Raymond is a juggernaut. Like I said, that's the word I'm using here. She is a juggernaut in the video game industry. Very much has a mind for the business, has a love for the business, and has a very sound creative mind when it comes to the business as well. And the fact that PlayStation wanted to acquire that specific studio that she started should speak volumes, and it will be interesting to see what they bring here. And this also brings up the conversation of PlayStation and Microsoft have been making a lot of power moves when it comes to acquisitions. Of course, the most infamous one being Microsoft looking to acquire Activision Blizzard in this year, and also Sony acquiring of course, Blue Point, who were responsible for many wonderful remasters of games and also leading the new generation of consoles into the forefront with their remake of Demon's Souls. That was received extremely well. They've acquired them, and now they've acquired Haven Studios. And they did say that more acquisitions would be on the way. And this does make people wonder, who else could they be talking about? Could they be talking about more smaller dev teams? Could someone bigger be on the way? And some people on Twitter will say that, oh, Sony doesn't have money in the bank to do this. The thing is, that is a lie. Sony absolutely has money in the bank to do this. Because if they didn't have money in the bank to do this, then they wouldn't do this. Now, I for one don't get involved with console wars. I'm a fan of games, not consoles. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that people get on Twitter for clout and try to digitally assassinate each other over Xbox and PlayStation, because it's just better to be a fan of games and not consoles, in my personal opinion. Because like I said before, and I'll say it again, the only console war that ever mattered was Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, because that one was fun and actually broke new ground. These two consoles are very identical to each other, that really the only thing that matters at the end of the day is what is their first-party titles that come out, to promote the product itself. But as far as, the things that can pull off, they're very identical with some differences here and there. So, and again, it doesn't matter who wins between PlayStation and Xbox, because Nintendo's already winning. So, Nintendo's already kicking the crap out of them with the Nintendo Switch being such a massive success. So at the end of the day, this is not a console war thing, and I'm sure, people will get online and, scream, they're acquiring people too, you're a bunch of hypocrites. And honestly, I always recommend to everybody, just please stay out of that argument. It's such a silly thing. So watching grown-ass men, say my console's better than yours, when at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because both companies are just laughing their way to the bank anyway. So this is a cool acquisition, and it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Some people think they might acquire Square Enix. Some people think they might acquire Capcom. I don't know, but the main takeaway from this is Haven Studios is a fantastic dev team headed by a fantastic lady, and it will be very cool to see where they go from here. Yeah, console wars are stupid. My console can beat up your console. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. My console can beat up your console. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it can. Meanwhile, Nintendo's over here like, okay, guys. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, guys. Whatever. Nintendo's already winning over here, and Nintendo's just like, man, whatever. You feel like the Square Enix is too big to get picked up by anyone right now? You say that, but you never know. You never know. I personally don't think Square Enix should be acquired. I think Square Enix should stay third party. Because, guys, you also have to remember, everybody acts, for some reason, this baffles me. Everybody acts like Sony is broke and poor. They're not. Does Microsoft have more money to blow? Probably, yes, absolutely. But people act like PlayStation is some small indie dev company that doesn't have money to blow. Y'all, people tend to forget that Sony is not just PlayStation. It's also movie licensing, movie creation, music licensing, televisions, Blu-ray players. Like, there's all these various degrees of things that are under the umbrella that is Sony. And people act like Sony's broke or something, or they're poor. They're not. Sony is not poor. They have money to blow. They got like 10 mil or something like that, 10 billion that they could blow. Not 10 mil, 10 bill. I don't know, but whatever it is, If somebody was going to pick up, I'd say it'd be easier for Sony than Microsoft, because Japanese laws are weird. Sony still owns Spider-Man too. Exactly. And they're going to continue to own Spider-Man. Shoot. You think Sony's going to give up Spider-Man? Hell no. Hell no. Hell no. Give me just a second. Oh, wow. My Rugal video is actually doing really well. Oh, that's cool to see, man. That's really cool to see. I love it. Cool to see, man. You love to see it. All right. And now for the last little bit here. So it's been out for a couple of days now. You could or a week if you had early access. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. And I do want to state before I begin this little quick review of it, Square Enix did sponsor me by providing me with a copy of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, and I have been live streaming that on this channel, which I'm going to continue to live stream tonight. So huge shout out to Square Enix for that. I just wanted to make that plain and clear to everybody before we begin here. Stranger of Paradise. The first big comparison everybody makes to it is, of course, the genre-creating Dark Souls. And it is right to compare it to Dark Souls in the regard of, of its difficulty, and in the vein of dying, respawning, making it back to the point that you failed to pass. So it is very similar in that regard. The combat system is more akin to Nioh because it is more fast-paced than Dark Souls, which shouldn't surprise anybody because Stranger of Paradise, while published by Square Enix, was in fact developed by Koei Tecmo. The Ninja Gaiden, Nioh, Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors guys. Those guys. Hyrule Warriors, they've done all of those. So the combat is very fast-paced and very combo-oriented, whereas Dark Souls combat, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne is a lot more even and slow-paced, as is the design of the game itself. And so that's kind of where the comparisons stop. That's kind of where the comparisons stop between the two, as far as Stranger of Paradise and Dark Souls is concerned. And the differences start to show in these aspects here. One, Stranger of Paradise is a lot more narratively driven because at its core, it is still a Final Fantasy game. While not your traditional Final Fantasy, it is a Final Fantasy game. And it's a Final Fantasy game in the regard of this is a retelling, or you could say an actual telling, of the events of Final Fantasy I. Now, Final Fantasy I, of course, came out on the Famicom and the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, back in the 80s, and was the big first success story that Square, at the time Squaresoft, now Square Enix, actually ever had. In fact, it was the game that saved the company itself. Now, the premise of Final Fantasy I was very basic. You're the four warriors of light. You have appeared because the seas have stopped roaming, the winds have stopped blowing, the earth is decaying, the fires are spreading, so the elements are out of control, and you start your whole adventure off as these four just nameless adventurers, and you're charged by the king to go rescue Princess Sarah from the evil knight Garland. Now, you make your way up to the Chaos Shrine, you defeat Garland, rescue Sarah, return her to the king. She gives you the loot, you cross the bridge, and then the real adventure begins. So you travel the world, growing in levels and experience, learning spells, buying weapons and armor, going into these dungeons, finding treasure, battling endless waves of enemies in old-school turn-based combat, and defeating the four elemental fiends in Lich, Marlith, Kraken, and Tiamat before heading back to the Chaos Shrine to confront Garland once again, who turns out there was a big time loop paradox where Garland can constantly be reborn to bring forth the ultimate fiend of evil in chaos. Now, that's pretty much the synopsis of Final Fantasy I. Again, the narrative, while basic, is not the forefront of Final Fantasy I. The adventure itself and the player experience through the gameplay and the exploration is, in fact, the core component of Final Fantasy I. Now, that is not the case here in Stranger of Paradise. You have, at least starting off, and again, I'm going to do my best not to spoil too much about the game. You have starting off 3 at first, and then 4 with the inclusion of Neon into the group. And again, more people may join later on. Again, I'm not going to spoil too much. As the 4 Warriors of Light. But here's where the differences start to show between the original FF1 and Stranger of Paradise. It is set in the world of Final Fantasy I. One of the opening cinematics even shows the evil knight Garland kidnapping the princess and taking her to the Chaos Shrine. But when the actual gameplay itself begins, It's not that. So it's kind of showing it may be showing things out of order. It may be showing things in a different time loop. We don't know. But I do suspect that a time loop, it may be in the works here because it was in the original Final Fantasy 1. You have Jack, who is the meme-worthy, angry edgelord protagonist who's just so delightful in his anger. You have Ash, whose job is a pugilist and later on becomes a monk. You have Jed, who is a duelist who later on becomes a thief, so he's the rogue of the group. And then you have Neon, who is the sword fighter, later on becomes the red mage of the group. And then Jack himself is of course, jack of all trades. That might be the reason maybe one of the reasons why the name was given to him, because literally he can be any job of the game. In the game, he can be a sword fighter, he can be a knight, he can be a warrior, he can be a dark knight, he can be a breaker, he can be a red mage, white mage, sage. He can be all these different kinds of jobs. So Jack can literally be whatever you want him to be. And so there is that. There was another character that just does join later on, but I'm not gonna say the name because it is technically a spoiler for later on events. And so Jack's main obsession is killing chaos. Now, this is different from the original FF1 because chaos was not known at the beginning of Final Fantasy 1. It's known right off the bat that Jack is out to defeat chaos. The worldly perception of what or who is chaos changes depending on where you go. The King of Cornelia flat out denies that chaos even exists as a physical being, and instead chaos is more of an idea. Even Neon herself doesn't completely subscribe to the idea that chaos is an actual physical being and is more of an idea. Jack does not believe any of this and feels in his heart that chaos is an actual physical, literal being and needs to be destroyed. And he doesn't want, like someone just said in the chat there, he doesn't want to defeat chaos. He wants to kill him. He just wants to flat out kill him. So this game is very anti-chaos. So that's the basis of the narrative there. So they're going around to these very familiar locations from the original Final Fantasy 1, like Provoca, where you fight the pirate BK, the Western Keep, where the Dark Elf Astos, who is a lot more handsome in this game than he was in the original, to where you go, the Flying Fortress with Tiamat. I did notice that they're doing things kind of out of order, because the first elemental fiend you fought actually was Lich. In this game, it seems to be Tiamat is going to be the first one, because one of the early areas you go to is indeed the Flying Fortress, where Tiamat awaits. So the narrative, while simplistic and linear, is fun. And I've always believed that not every video game, especially Final Fantasy games that come out, not every one of them have to be this big, mega serious thing going on. You know, not everything has to be the Final Fantasy 14 Feels Walker, Feels Bringer, Storm Feels, Heavens Feels, a Feels Reborn. You know, not everything has to be that. Sometimes they can just be these fun, over-the-top, insane stories that are just, like I said, insane and over-the-top. And there is a fun factor in that, and I think that's one thing people over-expect with Final Fantasy is that it has to be serious all the time, and it can't just be over-the-top. And it's okay to have some over-the-top fun. Heck, Devil May Cry has over-the-top fun with its narrative and characters, and yet people love it, you know, because and that's mostly just because they have grown to accept that from, you know, Devil May Cry. You know, Ninja Gaiden in many ways is the same way. You know, so it's okay to have fun over the top stories. You know, it really is fun. It's okay to have these fun over the top stories. And like I said, combat is very simplistic and combo oriented, and very, very, very hard hitting, as is expected from the Tecmo Koei dev team. Now, the next thing that people love to bring into these talks, and it happens every time either something from Software comes out, or something, or a Souls-like comes out, because at its core, it is a Souls-like. And that's the subject of difficulty in video games. And I've talked about this before. That is the subject of difficulty and accessibility. Now, I have always subscribed to the idea that difficulty and accessibility are two different things. Difficulty is just that. Is it a difficult game? Can you beat it? And the only reason that you can't beat it is because either A, you're underleveled, B, you're doing something wrong, or C, you didn't learn. That is the core of what Dark Souls was its difficulty. That is what made the franchise so successful, and that is what spawned an entirely new genre that harkened back to the days of old school difficult gaming. Some people, especially people on Twitter, like to twist this into a different narrative, and I mostly believe they do it just to get clout. I really don't personally believe that they personally believe this, but they twist the idea of difficulty into a game being inaccessible. And that's not true. Difficulty does not physically prevent you from playing a game. It's just not. It just doesn't. In Dark Souls 1, difficulty did not prevent you from figuring out that the way to beat the Asylum Demon was to run away from him and pay attention to the messages that were littered across the floor to guide the player, to show them and to teach them to watch their surroundings, and that maybe not every boss needs to be encountered the same way as you would perceive in one-on-one head-on collision. Collision. Sorry, not collusion. Collision. Like in most video games. Dark Souls 1 taught you that. And if you didn't learn that, then you didn't learn the game. And that's not the game's fault. That is the player's fault. Difficulty is not you wandered into an area where enemies are one-shotting you. Well, maybe if you're wandering into an area where enemies are one-shotting you, maybe you might not be of appropriate level or even skill to go to that area yet. That doesn't mean it's inaccessible, but you can absolutely go to it, but you do run the risk of getting destroyed. There's nothing stopping you, but you can go. And before anybody says, well, I wandered into the first area of Dark Souls at the Undead Burg and I got one shot. Well, first of all, if you went to the Undead Burg, nothing's one-shotting you. So that's untrue. If you're going into the graveyard with the skeletons and you're getting three-shotted, well, that's a higher-end area right there. You can explore it and run the risk, but there are tougher enemies in there. But nothing is physically stopping you from going there. That is difficulty. And difficulty only goes so far as what you learned from your experience and what you adapt to. Because in a video game, a player has to adapt to the game. The game doesn't adapt to you to make things easier for you. That's just the core of what a video game is. And then you have accessibility. Accessibility, and again, this is where people get things twisted. Accessibility are things that physically prevent you from playing the game, whether it be a physical handicap, whether it be you just don't have a controller, or C, you don't have the console to play it on. Now, that can be an accessibility problem right there, and people take that into the argument of first party needs to stop. But that's a whole nother topic. Mostly what people identify accessibility as is people that, say, have motor function problems with their hands. Now, that is, or things like colorblind mode, vision-related things, sound-related things. These are the kinds of things that developers, first-party companies like Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, and even third-party controller developers, and things of that nature. These are the kinds of things that can be addressed, actually very plainly. Let's say someone has motor function problems with their hands. There are controllers that exist to assist players to bring them to the same level, or as close to the same level as, say, someone that doesn't have motor function problems with their hands. Things like colorblind mode, or things that affect sound, things of that nature. That is getting into the realm of accessibility. That enables more people to play that were not physically able to play. It's not the game's fault that a person might have motor function problems with their hands or have eyesight problems. I have to change certain things when I play video games. I have to change certain settings on the visual side of things because there are certain colors that I just see differently or can't see very well, and sometimes darker colors give me problems with seeing things, so I have to turn the brightness up a little bit. Now, that is not an extreme case, but there are people that have more extreme examples than that. Way more extreme examples than that. And that's stuff that can be addressed and should be given more attention to. Not, I can't beat the first boss, so this game is inaccessible, so every game needs an easy mode. And in saying that, yes, Stranger of Paradise does have difficulty modes. But here's why it's okay. Here's why it's okay that Stranger of Paradise has difficulty modes. And why it still does not feed the argument that Dark Souls needs one. Because Dark Souls does not need an easy mode. And here's why. Dark Souls, as I said at the beginning of this talk, Dark Souls and Stranger of Paradise, while similar, have very major big key differences. Stranger of Paradise is a single-player focused game that is also severely focused around its narrative. Hence why one of the modes centers more around the story and narrative, thus making the game easier. It also has a higher difficulty you can turn on if you want enemies to hit harder and have higher HP, and the reward is you get more EXP. And then there's a normal mode. Here's why it's okay, though, for us to have this. Because it is a single-player experience, because it is a central single-player experience, you can fit in those difficulty modes without much detriment or compromising anything. If you were to do this to Dark Souls 1, people tend to forget that in Dark Souls and Bloodborne and in Elden Ring, a major component of those games is not just the PvE. It is the multiplayer experience. And when you factor in games that have multiplayer and things that have stats, like an RPG does, when you factor in that specific thing, you run into balancing issues. And that's why they patch and nerf certain things, because things will be overpowered. Let's say that in Dark Souls, there was an easy mode that allowed players to get powerful weapons that in normal mode you could not achieve later. But you kept the multiplayer PvP aspect of it, and now these players that were on easy mode can go into other players' realms and basically just absolutely destroy them. Well, that's not fair to the people that are on the normal mode because they have access to certain things that certain players don't. And, so that's not fair. So let's say, oh, well, then the answer to putting an easy mode in Dark Souls is to just turn off the multiplayer. Well, now in doing so, you have split the player base. You have half the player base that's on the multiplayer, and then you have the other half that is not. And while you can do Dark Souls without multiplayer, again, you're missing out on a very big component that is the game. You're missing out on co-op. You're missing out on the PvP, because one of the charming things about Dark Souls is the fact that the world is a dangerous place and it forces you to adapt to it, and you shouldn't force the game to adapt to you. Well, let's just say, well, then they could say, well, what if easy mode just allows co-op but no PvP? Again, you've split the player base. Okay, we'll just take the PvP out. Well, why should we take the PvP out? You're just cutting out content at this point. And so that's what it really does come down to. There's no way to put in that kind of mode in a Dark Souls game where it just clicks a button and either takes out enemies, shuffles items around, or things of that. You can't do that without splitting the player base or just straight up cutting content. The reason why it's okay for Stranger of Paradise is because it is a single player based game, because it is a narrative based game, and because they did not integrate competitive multiplayer into the game. There is a co-op mode. But there is no online competitive multiplayer. And because that was not put into the game, they don't have to factor in the issues of balancing when it comes to items, armor, spells, things of that nature. They don't have to counter that in. Now, some people might say, well, some people would say, well, what about Neo? What about Neo? Neo didn't have a difficulty option either. Why? Because there was online competitive multiplayer. And when you put in online competitive multiplayer that factors in and works off of your single player experience, you risk either A, splitting up the player base, B, cutting out content, or C, creating a very severely unbalanced game. And what does that mean? That means more work for the devs that have to constantly patch, buff, nerf, and constantly do all these things that maybe they shouldn't have to do. And before anybody says, well, does FromSoft actually test their games? They absolutely do. That's why certain weapons got nerfed at the beginning of Elden Ring. That's why things get nerfed and buffed over time until finally they just stop doing it. But I have a feeling that Koei Tecmo did not want to do that. And so, and plus, from a narrative standpoint, there was no reason to put in competitive multiplayer with Stranger of Paradise. So again, this is an example of a game that is a Souls-like, where a difficulty option is perfectly fine because of the design of the game. And I'm sure people will still use this as an argument for Dark Souls needs an easy mode. And I'm telling you, I will always stand in the camp that it doesn't. It will always stand by the fact that no, it does not. So at the end of the day, with everything I've said over there, do I highly recommend Stranger of Paradise? If you're a fan of Souls-like, if you're a fan of things like Devil May Cry, God of War, Neo, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, Final Fantasy, if you're a fan of any of these, I definitely recommend you give at least the demo a shot to see what you think. By the way, your progress from the demo can carry over. If you're into more fun, linear, nonsensical stories, this is a good choice for you. If you like good music, this has very good music and several homages to previous Final Fantasy games as well. If you're into that kind of thing, this is an absolutely good pick for you as well. If you're not into those kind of things, this may not be the pick for you. Or, like I said, give the demo a shot and just see what you think. It is available on both PlayStation platforms, both Xbox platforms, and is available on the Epic Store as well. Try the demo on the consoles. It's not on PC, unfortunately, the demo. Try the demo on console versions. See what you think, because you just never know until you try something. But as far as what do I rate this game, I absolutely rate this game an 8 out of 10. An 8 out of 10. I personally recommend it, especially if you're a Dark Souls and a Final Fantasy fan, or a Neo fan and a Final Fantasy fan. I absolutely recommend it because it's over-the-top, nonsensical fun. It's meme-worthy. It's fun combat, it's good music, it's lots of customization, there's tons of loot, and I absolutely love it for those reasons, and I recommend it definitely. So, there it is. Woo! Good stuff. It is hot. It is hot. I'll tell you what. Hold on. Wait a minute. Whoop. There we go. There we go. All right. So there was the episode 3 of the podcast right there. Hope y'all enjoyed that. I'm going to dip out for about an hour or so. I'll be back at around 7 p.m. for us to continue Stranger of Paradise. So thank y'all for joining me. For this third episode of the podcast, I'm going to upload the individual highlights as the throughout the week for people that want to see the individual highlights. So, thank y'all for joining me for this. It was a good talk. I am looking to maybe getting some of my friendos in here to talk about certain topics and whatnot. So I'm still kind of working out that timing and scheduling is a factor, of course. So it is what it is. But this was fun. I will see y'all, like I said, in about an hour or so for Stranger of Paradise, sponsored by Square Enix. Either way, thanks for joining me. Have a sway evening. See y'all in about an hour. Yeah.